Welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone, the place to be if you want to live in the flow of synchronicities and miracles in your everyday life. I'm your host, Marcy Shimoff, and I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a teacher in The Secret, and the creator of the worldwide program, Your Year of Miracles. And I have spent my life studying happiness and miracles. And in this podcast, we're bringing to you extraordinary miracle stories that will inspire you, and also groundbreaking miracle tools that will show you how to live your most miraculous life. It is my heartfelt intention that we have a fabulous time together. So welcome to the Miracle Zone. And today I am joined by a very dear friend and a beloved spiritual leader, the exquisite Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati. And hi, Sadhvi ji.
Marcy, so wonderful to be together.
Oh, I always love every opportunity to get to be with you. And so let me tell everybody a little bit about you. So in addition to being a spiritual leader, Sadhvi is also a speaker. She's a social activist. She's based in Rishikesh, India, and she is the Secretary General of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance. And she is the president of the Divine Shakti Foundation. She's also the director of the International Yoga Festival, and she's received countless awards for her humanitarian work. She's also the author of the #1 best-selling memoir, Hollywood to the Himalayas, A Journey of Healing and Transformation. This is a fabulous book. So in addition to all of those things I listed, Sadhvi is also an amazing writer. And this is a must-have. So let me just share a little bit, Sadhvi ji, about you. We add the word in India, the phrase ji is added to names as a sign of extra love, respect, and honor. And so Sadhvi ji, I feel so blessed because I get to spend a lot of personal time with Sadhvi. Whenever she travels to the Bay Area, she comes to stay at my home, and I get the extreme privilege of sitting around my kitchen table, having breakfast together, and having so much wisdom come forth from Sadhvi. Sadhvi's used to speaking in front of tens of thousands of people, and she is brilliantly wise there, and she's brilliantly wise at my kitchen table. And Sadhvi ji, you are a revered teacher in India and also in the West. And I really love that your life is devoted to truth, to experiencing the truth of life, to living. You are in quite an exalted state of consciousness, and being in your presence is always fabulous because it's contagious. And you are really the embodiment of what we talk about living in the miracle zone. I've witnessed it in you. And you've also had quite an interesting background to get to where you are. So I'm going to ask you about that in just a minute, but I just first want to say, I love you. We just got to spend 5 days together in Mount Shasta, and it was just beautiful.
I love you so much, and I'm so happy to be here with you, and so happy to be here with your miracle and miraculous community.
I've just been so excited to get to have you on this Living in the Miracle Zone podcast because your story is remarkable. And, you haven't always, for those of you who are listening rather than viewing this, Sadhvi ji is in an orange robe, and she is in the monastic order and it's quite an amazing journey how you got there, because your childhood was not easy, and it's maybe you could just tell us your background and how you ended up living in the miracle zone.
Sure. So it's been an extraordinary journey, and definitely a miraculous journey, a journey that is really filled with grace. And for me, it's a journey that feels like a journey of grace and of miracles. I grew up in Los Angeles, quite literally in Hollywood, hence
That's the
the,
term,
yes,
Hollywood to the
exactly.
Himalayas. It's true. You were a Hollywood girl.
Hence the Hollywood of the Hollywood to the Himalayas. And I had, in so many ways, a really blessed and beautiful and extraordinary upbringing. I had all of the opportunity, all of the privilege, all of the support, all of the education, all of the experiences, all of the things that really are what, give us the background for life, give us a foundation for life, and all of the things that people would think, oh God, if only I could be that lucky, if only I could be that privileged, if only I could have that type of family or live in that place or go to that school or vacation here. And for me, there were two, there were two streams of that which was not so perfect. Stream one was just your real general kind of angst that especially those of us in our teenage years and 20s feel, but certainly it stays with many of us later in life. And it's that angst that comes from the awareness that, hey, guess what? Possessions don't bring happiness. And hey, guess what? A title or a degree doesn't bring happiness. And guess what? Going to a movie that you like, or having pizza, or vacationing at a certain resort, it doesn't actually bring us the happiness that we're really looking for on a very deep and sustained level. So that was one stream that I think a lot of people go through, and a lot of people recognize and realize at some point in their life of like, hey, I've been jumping through all these hoops, and I've been jumping well, and I've been jumping through the right hoops, and I've done the education thing, and I've done the career thing, and I've done the have a good body and beautiful, relationships thing. And yet there's something inside me that is not fully satisfied. There's something in me that is not where I want it to be. I'm not living in a state of joy at every minute, even though all of the pieces seem to line up in the external world. The other stream for me was a personal stream, which was that in my early childhood, I had been sexually abused and also abandoned by my biological father. And that led to a very understandable sense of trauma, of anger, of pain, of doubting the self, of feeling like you're not good enough, that you're not worthy enough. And as so many of us look for ways to numb, to heal, to treat that sense of pain inside, I did the same and turned to food and turned to throwing that food back up. And I ended up becoming severely bulimic and was in and out of hospitals and eating disorder clinics and whatnot in late teens and early 20s. And by the time I was 25, which is how old I was when I went to India with a backpack, I had gotten to a point where I actually really felt like I was managing my life really well. I had learned how to manage my emotions. I had learned how to manage my food and my meals. I was managing my studies. I had graduated from Stanford. I was in the midst of a Ph.D. program in pediatric neuropsych. I was managing my relationships. I was married. And I really felt like I've got this under control because managing your life was what I actually thought was the highest goal. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
like that was what we were taught was, hey, just learn to manage your life. And no one had ever said that, yes, of course, managing your life is better than not managing it, but there's actually a higher place. There's a higher goal than just learning to manage your life.
Yeah, I
And that
think
goal is freedom.
yeah, I think that is so important that, my mother used to say, people would say, how are you doing? And her pat response was, I've got everything under control. And that was like the best that we're going to do. We're going to have everything under control. And as you just said, that's not freedom. That's not what we really want. So you're 25, you're in a PhD program, you're married, you've got this, sense of your life where you're managing it, you got it under control. And out of the blue, you go to India, not because you want to, but because your husband wants to. And so you go along because you've been a vegetarian for a while and you figure they've got good food there. And then tell us what happened when that
Yeah,
kind
so
of
I
changed
end up
everything.
I end up in India with a backpack on a trip I had agreed to go to be a good wife. And because I knew I could get great vegetarian food in India, and I was a very strict vegetarian. Excuse me. And Rishikesh was the very first place we went. People talk about serendipity, or they talk about intuition, or we talk about miracles, and we talk about grace, and we talk about all of this powerful, juicy stuff. And I was not on any conscious level tuned into any of that. I wouldn't say, oh, I'm here to find my miracle zone, or I'm here
Mm-hmm.
to find grace. I just opened up a 500-page Lonely Planet guidebook sitting over a blessed cup of coffee in Delhi that I had finally found that wasn't powdered coffee, and open it up and it says Rishikesh. And so we go to Rishikesh. It sounded like a nice place, a river, mountains, yoga, etc. And it wasn't too far from Delhi. And we get to Rishikesh and I stand on the banks of the Ganga River, the Ganges River, and had an extraordinary spiritual experience of being in the presence of the divine, but a presence of the divine that was borderless and boundaryless, and ended up infusing everything, everyone, everywhere, whatever I saw, and also myself. And so it was this experience of, oh my God, there is the divine, because I was raised in a Reformed Jewish family. And we went to synagogue mostly because it mattered to my grandmother. I was bat mitzvahed to make my grandparents happy. But there was never a sense in my life of the presence of God. Here suddenly I was, and there was this experience of the presence of the divine. It wasn't like there was some specific image and it had, a name tag on it that said God, but it was this undeniable presence. It was visual, it was auditory, it was sensory. I mean, every way of knowing that I have eyes, ears, tongue, fingers, like all of me was experiencing this presence of the divine everywhere and in me as well. And it knocked me to the ground and I suddenly was crying. And I knew, this is where I'm meant to be. Like, this is my home. And also I knew, oh my God, I've always felt I'm not worthy enough, not good enough, not pure enough, not this enough. I who always felt like I had to keep achieving and acquiring and doing in order to feel worthy, that I had to look a certain way and bring home a certain type of grades and get certain scores. And then I would feel worthy of occupying my place on planet Earth, worthy of people's love, worthy of, So suddenly it was this experience of the divine in. And that was the first miracle, we could say, that opened me to the presence of the miraculous, grace-filled life that I was meant to live. And then over the next 7 to 10 days, I had this series of experiences. I heard a voice as I was walking through Parmarth Nikatan Ashram, the ashram that I now live in. And the voice said, "You must stay here." Fast forward a few days later, I was walking what I thought was going to be out of the ashram. I had just finally met the incredible being who would become my guru, His Holiness Pujaswami Chidanand Saraswati Ji, the president of the ashram. And I thought I was going to walk out and go back to my husband at the hotel and go up to the mountains. And suddenly my feet are quite literally glued to the ground and I can't move my feet. So it was this series of miracles, series of presence of grace in very specific form, in very specific ways, to make me know this is where I'm supposed to be. And September will be 27 years.
That is such a beautiful miracle, Sadhvi ji. So fortunately, for you were following what is called your dharma, what your path was, which was to lead a monastic life. And this turned into that. And however, there are many of us, most of us who are listening, that aren't going to be donning robes and living the monastic life. So what do we do to, or perhaps we're not stepping in the river Ganges and having this experience of unity with all of life. What do you suggest that people do to live more in the miracle zone?
Beautiful. And it's a really important point, and I want to doubly emphasize that. Miracles neither come from the clothes you wear, the role you play, the specific physical location you're in, the relationships you have, the life dharma you're living. Miracles don't come through those, and they also don't dictate those. So my dharma to live a life as a monastic, to live a life of service, to live a life in Rishikesh, India, in the lap of the Himalayas, that the only miracle in that, I would say, is number one, that I realized it, because it was certainly not at all what I thought. So if you ask me about kind of the relationship between miracles and my dharma, and then we'll get into other people, the only miracle there was that I recognized it, realized it, that I was open enough, courageous enough to embrace it. I mean, I was someone who was terrified of being abandoned. And the fact that I let my husband go off into the mountains by himself while I moved into the ashram, like that was the first miracle. Mm-hmm. Because I never would have done that. So it wasn't that the miracle was becoming a monastic, or that the miracles are because I'm a monastic. It was that the miracle was that I, as someone who had thought my life was going to be something totally different, actually had the clarity, the connection, and the courage to open my heart to what my dharma was. So that's a first and really important part. The other important part is when we talk about spirituality, because a lot of these words, we use them together. We talk about miracles, we talk about grace, we talk about the divine, we talk about spirit, we talk about source, we talk about all of these aspects. And it's really important to realize that these are not energies, aspects, presence, possibilities that require us to get up at 4 o'clock every morning and meditate. I mean, yeah, you better have a meditative practice, and we'll talk about that. But okay, you can't get up out of your bed at 4 a.m. That's okay. Grace doesn't discriminate. Grace doesn't say, well, then, forget it. I'm not coming today. It's not a Santa Claus situation of a list of, who's been good and who's been bad and who's going to get what and who's not going to get it. And did you do this today? And did you do that? And, oh, you were angry, so therefore no miracles for you today. Or, oh, you felt lustful, no miracles for you. Or, oh, you didn't do your yoga, no grace.
That's really good news. If I didn't do my yoga, there's still grace. That's great news.
There's still grace. There's still miracles. Grace doesn't discriminate. Those are all mind games. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, of course, and I'll come into that in a moment, there are certainly practices that open us to the presence of that which exists. But it's really important to realize these practices are not what bring grace or bring miracles. These are practices that simply open us to the presence of that which is, and that becomes the miracle. So you are living in a family, or you are hoping to be living in a family. You're getting up every day, you're driving to the office, you're punching a time clock, you're going out for yoga or drinks with your friends after work. Grace and miracles are available for you, whatever your life is.
I want to emphasize that, because that's such an important thing. We tend to think linearly. If I do X, I will get Y. And here's the thing. We can't control miracles. You can't make them happen. The dictionary definition is that a miracle is a surprise and welcome event that can't be explained by science, but that is often attributed to divine grace. They are an act of grace. What we do is we put ourselves in that state of openness to receiving the miracles that are all around us all the time. And that's, I think, what you're saying. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, Marcy, we are the miracles.
Right.
I mean, a lot of us think, oh, the miracle would be I will win the lottery, or my soulmate is going to be, he's going to come knocking on my door. He's going to be the Uber Eats guy and just show up at my door, whatever. But actually, who we are, that we are here, our connection with ourselves, each other, the planet, the divine, that's the miracle. And we're here. Another quick point before I get into specific practices is that a lot of us think from our religious backgrounds or our religious training that somehow the more austere you are, the more worthy of miracles or grace you are, and that somehow we are supposed to not enjoy the extraordinary creation we've been given. And I don't believe that. You think about if you give someone a gift and you show up at their house a year later and they say, guess what? That present you gave me, I stuck it in my closet and I turned off the light and I never open the closet door and I never look at it and I pretend it's never there. Aren't you proud of me? You'd be like, what? I gave you that gift because I want you to have it and enjoy it, not because I want you to pretend it doesn't exist and stick it in your closet with the lights off. And in the same way, you think God has given us this gift of life, of creation. of these five senses that enable us to see, to hear, to feel. And how are we supposed to connect with the giver of the gift when we're denying the gift? So that's a really important piece as well. And then getting into...
let me just say, Sadhvi,
Sure.
how as I said, we just were together for 5 days in Mount Shasta. And one of the great joys of being with you is getting to see how you savor life, how you savor the views on top of the mountain, and you savor the conversations that you have with each person, and you savor the food that we're having for dinner. And there's just, I love the word savor, because it's actually been shown that we need to savor the good for at least 20 seconds for it to create new neural pathways in the brain where we experience it more and more. And this distinction of not, thinking that you're not supposed to enjoy all that life is here giving us is so inaccurate. That yes, it's
a lot of us grow up with that, though, and and feel, people in certain religious traditions grow up and feel guilty for enjoying, feel guilty for receiving, feel guilty for having. And it's so important to realize, God, we've been given this gift. And if we've been created in the image of the divine, or we are the divine, however you conceive of it, clearly we are meant to enjoy the gift that we've been given. So that's important. And in terms of living in that miracle zone, I think the first and most important piece is to remove that which keeps us away from it. Because as I said, it's there. It's not that we are bringing miracles. It's that we are opening ourselves to the presence of that. And that's our nature. You look at the yogis and the sages and the mystics and of all different religions, and they are just living in miracle zones and living in grace. What is it about us that blocks us? And for most of us, it's the mind that says nothing is right. Oh my God, this is wrong, and that is wrong, and this person is wrong, and that's wrong, and I'm wrong. And in order to be okay, forget miracles for a moment. In order to just be okay, I need this and this and that, and this has to change, and that has to change. And we're so convinced that we can't even be okay, let alone joyful and peaceful and miraculous and grace-filled, until a list of criteria are checked off, and until we have that list of things that we need, that we're keeping ourselves away from miracles because we've got this vice-like death grip on every minute and every moment of our lives. I think about it sometimes. You think, imagine that you were a parent and your child was giving a piano recital. Okay. It's one way of thinking about it. And your child is a great pianist, like makes beautiful, beautiful, beautiful music. But you've heard him or her practice it so many times, and they're so nervous about the recital. And you go to the recital and they start playing, and you, because you know every note, you're constantly thinking about what the next note is. And you're like, don't miss it. Remember, it's C. Remember, it's this. Remember that. You can't enjoy the music because your mind is one note ahead and so anxious that they're going to forget it. Or if you're playing the music and not being able to be in the music because you're constantly thinking, oh, I hope I don't forget that chord or this, you're one step ahead and you're not in the moment. And so the first key is we have to remove that which is blocking us from it, which is the games of the mind that tell us that things are not right, that right here, right now, I'm lacking in some way, that right here, right now, the situation is lacking in some way. And that viewpoint of lack keeps us from living in the truth and the experience of abundance and miracles and grace. And so we have to shift the mindset from things are not right to gratitude. And that, we can make that number 2 practice. So number 1 is we free our minds of the negativity and the sense of lack and retrain our thinking processes. And number 2 is gratitude, because gratitude is really the antithesis of, and also the antidote to, all of that negativity and all of that sense of lack. If we shift into a mindset of gratitude, and I know a lot of you are struggling. A lot of you are going through really difficult, trying situations, and nothing to be made light of or deny or repress or spiritually bypass. But hey, do you have running water come out of a tap somewhere in your house? Can you just turn a tap and get running water out of it? Do your eyes open in the morning, and are you able to see through them? Are your legs able to carry you from your bed to the bathroom in the morning? Is there food somewhere in your home or in a shop that you have the money to purchase? Is there someone in your bed, in your home, in your life who loves you and who you love? Are you free to love whomever you want, however you want, and to connect with the divine however you want, in whatever way or not? If you've got all of those things I just mentioned, you are more fortunate than like 99 point God knows what % of people on earth. You are in the top less than 1% of people on earth.
Not only that, people on earth and people who have ever walked the earth.
You're right. People who have ever been here. And so when we are going through trials and tribulations and difficulties, and it's so hard to think of what to be grateful for, right? I mean, maybe you are going through a divorce. Maybe you've just lost a loved one. Maybe you're got fired from your job. Maybe you've got a health challenge. Maybe one of so many other things that arise in our life. It can feel hard to be grateful. So shift your mind at those times to the things that you do have, and just really focus on that. So that would be number 2 point
and
for
there's
me.
a question that I love to ask that I'm going to invite everybody right now to answer. What is right about this moment? Instead of what is missing, what is wrong in this moment, right now in this moment, what is right? I mean, for
Beautiful.
me, what's right is that we're getting to engage in this conversation around what matters most, I think, in life, which is truth, which is, the doors to freedom, and why we're on the planet is this. So you've just given us 2. I think we might have time for just one more.
Perfect. So one more. Let's call the last one trust fall. And that's a trust fall into the universe. If a loved one says to you, close your eyes and open your mouth, you're going to do it because you know they're not going to stick poison or, something that just tastes awful in your mouth. You wouldn't do it necessarily for a stranger on the bus. Or maybe you'd keep, one eye kind of open just a little bit to make sure that you see what's going in, That trust that we have for our loved ones on that level is the trust we have to have in the universe. You know, a lot of us in school or in corporate team building retreats, they do this thing called trust fall, and you put your arms out and somebody's standing behind you and you just fall backwards and they catch you. And sometimes you're paired up with the schoolyard bully or your enemy or some competitor or someone you don't even know. And yet we always drop back because we know they're going to catch us. Even if they're obnoxious to me on the schoolyard or in the office, and even if they steal all of my ideas and put their name on it and talk badly about me behind my back, or even if I've never seen this person before, nonetheless, when I put my arms out and I fall, they're going to catch me. And if we can have that level of trust for an enemy, a competitor, a stranger, we have to have it for the divine. And we have to realize, because the thing that steals our trust when a lot of people lose faith, it's because they wanted something that they didn't get. We have this idea, I want this to happen. It doesn't happen. So we decide, forget it. It's like the vending machine is broken. You know, I put in my money and I pushed the button for chocolate bar and I didn't get a chocolate bar. Instead, I got a bag of carrots. And so this stupid machine is broken. But the universe is not a vending machine. It's not going to give you just what you think you want. It's going to give you actually that which is best for you. And so that trust fall involves us letting go of that death grip on life, letting go of that idea that I know what I need. I know what's going to make me happy. I know. We don't know. How many times have you had this beautiful, miraculous surprise and you're overjoyed in a way that you never would have anticipated, that you never thought of? The universe turns perfectly satisfied caterpillars into butterflies. It turns perfectly satisfied seeds into trees. It knows what it's doing. And so rather than trying to make our lives satisfactory by just doing what I think I need to do to feel satisfied, we open ourselves to that presence and that power, and we trust fall. And when things don't go our way, we realize it's not because the universe is broken or is against us, but it's because whatever it is that's happening is actually that which is, no matter how much it may hurt in the moment, it is actually the most conducive thing for our growth and our blossoming and our coming closer and closer to the divine.
I so love this point that you've just said and the beautiful way in which you said it. You know, we have 5 foundations for living in the miracle zone. And the first one is trusting in the universe. And one of my favorite quotes ever is Einstein said, the most important question we can ask ourselves is this a loving universe? And how you answer that question will determine how you experience life. So what I've seen is people who are happiest, people who are most living in the miracle zone, are those who say, yes, I trust that life is for me. And that if things don't happen the way I think they should or the way I want them to, it's not because I'm bad. It's because there's something better for me. There's something different for me. There's another great quote, rejection is God's protection. And let me tell you, if I look at the boyfriends that I thought I wanted to marry when I was in my 20s and who rejected me, I'm thinking, oh yes, rejection is God's protection. Thank God. So Sadhvi ji, this has been spectacular. You gave us such inspiration with your own story, but also 3 really practical points. You spoke, number 1, you said was about being present and not looking for what's wrong in each moment. And then number 2 is gratitude, opening up to the gift that is in front of us at all times, like gratitude. And then number 3 is that trust fall. I love the idea of the trust fall into this benevolent or loving universe. So amazing. And this is just like the conversation, whenever we're together, I so appreciate how it's whether we're taking a walk, eating breakfast, whatever we're doing, there's some conversation that's about truth. In India, it's called satsang. And that's really that our daily lives, our conversations throughout the day are satsang with each other to help us each awaken. So, Sadhvi ji, I know that people are going to want to find out more about you and your amazing work. You do so much fantastic service work, seva work for the world. So you can find out more about Sadhvi by going to sadhviji, that's sadhviji.org. And is there a closing comment you have before I close with a quote from you?
Just that being here together with you on this beautiful podcast and our beautiful friendship, I mean, that's a miracle. And I would leave everyone with the awareness that every minute is a miracle, every moment is a miracle. It doesn't always arrive in the form of a winning lottery ticket or, the Uber Eats guy who's your soulmate. It arises in every breath. It arises in every flower that opens her petals to the sun. It arises in every sip of water. And just see as you walk through your day, how many moments you can tap into the miraculous nature of that moment, the miracle of that moment. When you turn on a tap and water comes out, like that is a miracle. And just spend as much awareness, as much conscious awareness as you can. Every minute, every moment, what's miraculous about this moment? Is there a flower? Is there a tree? Is there someone you can smile at? Is there a new baby? Is there whatever it is? The miracle of nature, the miracle of creation, the miracle of love. Just get yourself into it every minute and every moment rather than feeling like you're just waiting for the miracle to arrive. Let yourself get attuned in every minute. Are you still breathing even though you forgot to watch your breath? That's a miracle.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is truly a beautiful conversation about the miraculous. And I will leave everyone with this quote from Sadhvi ji. The reason that we take birth is to awaken to our divinity, to wake up to our true selves and live that. And I will add to that is the miracle zone, the waking up as our divinity. So I want to thank you, Sadhvi ji, so much. And I want to thank everyone here for listening today. I hope that you are feeling inspired and uplifted and more in the miracle zone after our time together. And if you enjoyed this episode, if you were moved by this episode, we so appreciate your 5-star ratings and your reviews. And of course, share the Miracle Zone love with your friends and your family. And if you want to live more in the Miracle Zone, one thing you can do right now is to start by taking our free 2-minute quiz to find out what your miracle superpower is. We each have miracle superpower that we can lean more into. So you can go to miraclequiz.com. And remember that your life of miracles is waiting for you. It is your birthright. And simply by listening to this podcast, you are taking a step forward into the miracle zone. Enjoy.